Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constance Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they're going to share some very exciting information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your personal and professional effectiveness, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is LaBey. Lori has been speaking professionally for over 5 years, and the content that she primarily speaks on is Alzheimer's and dementia and care culture. She also speaks on social media and team building. She has spoken primarily nationally and is based out of Minnesota. Lori, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Constance.
And thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. I'd like to kick off the show by asking you if you could tell the listeners a little bit about your business and how you help your clients.
Sure. Basically, I've developed Alzheimer's Speaks, which came because my mom had dementia for 30 years, and it kind of grew unexpectedly. I wasn't planning on careers at all. And we basically are an advocacy-based company that help people shift from crisis to comfort around the world, utilizing different techniques and just simple steps to bring them comfort and remove their fear with this disease.
Okay, interesting. So this was something that was, based on a personal experience that you had that kind of morphed into a business.
Yeah, I kind of call myself an advocate on steroids. There were so many things that my family needed that weren't there, and I thought they've got to be out there. And so what Alzheimer's Speaks does is it raises everyone's voice and tries to get content and resources to the people in need, and really strongly believes that all voices need to be heard. That meaning the patient who's diagnosed, the family members, the professionals, and there's so many creative things that are happening with advocacy, from films and music and plays to football games and artwork that people don't know, and it allows them to tap their own creativity and be able to utilize their skills to survive and live really well with this disease.
So what are 2 or 3 problems that your clients you typically have, and how do you help them solve those?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to do is, we have this mentality that healthcare and the doctors know best, and the government knows best, and I think we have to really kind of shut up and listen to everyone's voice. We have to hear the true needs and not keep going on perceived needs or what we've always done. And so some of the things we've done to be different is, we created a radio show called Alzheimer's Talks, where we invite people to join in and we share knowledge. And no one had dedicated a program to that before, and we've been doing that for about 4 years. We brought over the memory cafes from the UK, which is I don't even like to call it a support group, because it allows people to get together because of their disease, but the disease takes a back seat and allows them to get back to the core of their relationships. I think as a society, we've lost our care culture. We don't even know what care culture is, and we have to consciously learn to care again and bring people together, and so that we have a sense of community. Most people don't even know who lives in their neighborhood anymore. And, that's a sad state, that we can't care for one another, that we have gotten so judgmental and so in the box of what's right and what's wrong. There's so much beauty and diversity, and there's so much to be learned through illness and aging and disease. And we can do that in a really respectful manner and remove people's fears. And really, I tell people, for example, like with my mom, her disease was the biggest gift I'll ever receive in my life, because the lessons I learned don't just apply to the disease. They apply to all angles of my life. And I think that's one of the things that we have to teach people. We have to open them up and remove the stigmas and the isolation. It's just so severe. And just let people know what they're going through is normal. It might not be normal aging, but it is normal, and a lot of people are going through it, and they're not alone. And when we can connect people through that, we empower them, and we empower change.
So in terms of, and I know we talked a little bit before the show, in terms of your job is making them feel comfortable and, getting through the day. How do you help them do that?
A lot of it is I share simple stories and little wisdoms, that, again, my mom taught me. One of them, for example, is that I found that in life we remember three things. We remember what causes us fear, what brings us sadness, and what brings us joy. And, the sadness typically is stuff in the past that we feel we've lost instead of looking at it and being grateful for what we had. The fear is usually all the stuff we worry about that could happen, that half the time doesn't happen. And the joy is we can only capture that in the present. And, we can't find it if we're not looking for it. So I just tell people, what is it you want to focus on? What do you want in your life? Because you have to look for it. You won't find it if you're not looking for it. And so just that simple, change in terms of perceptions and wants and the ability to control that changes people's lives instantly. They tell me that all the time after I talk. It's like, oh my gosh, I do have to start looking for the joy, and I have to start making joyful moments if I want them in my life. So they still exist with disease or not.
Mm-hmm. So are most of your engagements speaking engagements in front of a group of people, or do you have one-on-one sessions? Are you going into homes and helping people? How does that work?
I don't do the one-on-ones. I just really feel like this is, first I feel like this is my calling. This is where I have always supposed to have been. Mm-hmm. And so I like to speak in front of large groups. And not that I won't speak to a smaller group of 30 or 50, but typically it's hundreds of people.
Okay.
And you get that power, when you empower people. One of the things I do is called emotional-based training. So I get people to laugh and cry, to feel the need to change, to give them permission to feel, because we get so stagnant both in our family lives and as professionals. When we're caring for someone, we end up with this checklist. And we really forget about the soul of the person and the connections and the relationship. And that's really what the person who is in need wants. They still want a relationship. They still want to be valued. They want to be considered a care partner or a care companion. They don't want to be, feel like they're a burden or that they've lost their independence. And, in any relationship, anywhere, it's a give and take. So I try to help people remove even the word caregiver, even though I use it because it's common, and just try to get them to make that small switch of care partner or care companion, because it changes what your expectation is of that relationship.
So in terms of new client engagement, new client identification, how do you go about identifying good prospective candidates or organizations that you would be able to help for speaking engagements?
Well, it's interesting because as a professional speaker, I've broken every rule. Everyone says you have to have a niche, and my niche is dementia and caregiving. But most people sub-categorize that group into, okay, I'm going to talk with the doctors, I'm going to talk with the nurses, the activities people, the direct care, the families. And I say we need to get them all in the same room. We need everyone from maintenance to administration and families together, because everybody is a part of the story. Everybody has an impact on that person. And we can't make effective change if we don't know where all players are sitting, and if we don't get all players on the same page in terms of really understanding what person-centered care is. And that's a huge, huge buzzword. So, I can speak to a church, I can speak to large associations, hospitals. It's very diverse. I can speak to just a regular old company who says, hey, we've got a lot of employees that are dealing with this, and we need to figure out how to help them because they're missing a lot of work. So how do we find support for them? How do we work with them? And they're also, because dementia is getting diagnosed so much younger, they're finding a lot of their employees are starting to have issues. So how do they address that too? So with financial institutions, or it might just be a grocery store or a bank that says, this is something we can do a better job with. So there's lots of different angles. I was involved with the very first dementia-friendly community that kicked off in Wisconsin. And, you're hearing much more about that. There's lots of communities now getting on board saying, as a community, we can live better. We can educate our businesses, our schools, our children, as well as our families, and really working together.
Going back before your mother got sick with this affliction, what was your background? Where did you start?
Well, I was in healthcare, working with developmentally disabled in the group home industry, and got burnt out. And then I went into residential real estate, where I identified the senior market, which back then no one even knew existed. And I did that for 25 years, and I absolutely loved it. But, my mom got diagnosed at my age in her mid-50s, and she lived to 86. And so more than half of my life I dealt with this. And, I just kept, in real estate, I worked a lot with the senior market, and they were the ones that really encouraged me to say, Lori, you got to speak, you got to write a book. You come with hope. Everyone is doom and gloom and fear. And, you're telling people this is okay. This is just another disease like cancer, or heart disease. And there are modes we can live with this and still have a good life. And so that's kind of how I got into it, how the whole transition, took off for me. It was just very natural. It wasn't a place I ever thought I would go. But even though I was in real estate for 25 years, thought I'd never leave, I can honestly say I love my job so much now. It's like I was never in that space. And that's like something I can't even believe I can say that. But it's just so neat to be able to make a difference, and to hear the comments that people say, and just to get a hug or see that glint in their eye, or hear their story, where they're able to open up and be vulnerable where they haven't been able to do that before. It's just a beautiful thing to be part of.
I can imagine. I have so much admiration and respect for what you're doing, and I mean it's definitely something that's needed. We've got, disabled vets, and, we've got many groups out there, but people with dementia and Alzheimer's definitely, and I've got some personal experience with that as well. So I really applaud you for that.
Yeah, it's really just about, my whole philosophy has been really simple. I mean, I remember when I got the call from Sharecare and Dr. Oz saying I was the number one influencer online, and my comment to them was, how the heck did that happen? And they kind of laughed at me and said, well, what do you mean? And I said, I'm a one-person show. I have done no search engine optimization. I have no budget for marketing. And they're like, you've got to be kidding. How are you doing this? And it was real simple. I'm just trying to have an honest conversation. I'm just trying to open the door for people to feel comfortable to talk about what it really feels like and what their real needs are, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to address true change. And then to get people to collaborate. And there's so many people out there willing to help if you ask, but we're so afraid to ask. And I think the other thing that I do really different is, I have this passion that people say just kind of gets them excited. But when I work with groups, the first thing I tell them is, who do you want on your group? Who's accessible? And they all start out with who they think they need. And it's always titles and positions. And I say, scrub that. Because they're the first ones that'll kill you in terms of your process if they don't believe. So look for the person with passion and who really, truly wants to change, because they will work hard and fast and furious, and they will, they'll expand your voice, your mission. They'll tap into resources they have and that their friends have in a minute, because they feel it. You don't want people on your committees that don't feel the need. They're not going to help you. They're really not.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and that's not only a principle that should be adopted in healthcare and Alzheimer's and dementia, but in any form of business. Don't look at titles, but look at someone who can actually be a supporter, can actually do the job and push the thing through.
because there's so many people that get assigned. Well, it'll look good. We need to be there. But the person there doesn't want to be there.
Right.
And so, I mean, and I've seen that so many times where they say it can't be done. I've worked on so many projects where people go, it can't be done, it can't be done, it can't be done. It's like, too bad, did it. And it's still working,
right.
and it's sustainable, and it's not costing much, you know. And, and they're just shocked. But again, it's when you can align passion, when you can really get people to feel the need and empower them to feel like they can make a difference, allow them to be creative and have authority and responsibility with what's being assigned to them, not just a game piece on a board, but let them really position things and have a voice. And things, you can blow through things so fast and get things up and running. People are just shocked. I hear that all the time with, how have you done what you've done? And I'm like, because I won't be told no. I think our problem with society is we're so afraid of failure that it stops us from trying. And I think what we should fear is not trying.
Absolutely. And focus on what can be done as opposed to what cannot.
Exactly.
So with the last minute that we have here, I would like for you to convey one concept, idea, or thought so that if the listeners don't get anything else out of this very fruitful discussion, this is what you would like to leave them with. Could you do that?
I guess the comment would be, you is the power of one. You are an amazing, incredible person with great ideas and a wonderful voice, and you need to be heard. And don't ever let anyone stop you from trying to make the world better. Just find people that you're aligned with, and you can make a huge difference. And if that's with dementia and caregiving, reach out to me. I would love to talk to you, because we will make a world of change.
Very well said, Lori. Now, if the listeners would like to contact you, find out more about the services that you provide, and engage with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to my website, which is alzheimerspeaks.com. That's www.alzheimer's and then speaks, SPEAKS.com. So there's two S's in the middle. And there's a big contact button in the upper right-hand corner that'll give you my phone number. It'll give you my Twitter account, all kinds of stuff there. Or you can always feel free to call me by phone to 651-748-4714, or email me at Lori, Lori, at alzheimersspeaks.com.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was very powerful information that you shared with the listeners in regards to Alzheimer's and dementia, and we really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the time and having me on. I'm thrilled to be able to share my message, and hopefully some of your listeners, they'll be interested in maybe becoming dementia aware or dementia friendly, or just learning more. We have lots of free resources for them too. So,
well, thank you very much, and we will definitely get the message out there.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.